The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome. It's a bonus show. It's a beautiful Friday, and I have 4 stories. The first one is New York City. Formerly Dave City, $4 billion train station just completed in New York City. It's called the Oculus, and I guess there was no conflict there with a certain piece of VR equipment, but it's very, I guess you could say, it's supposed to look very artsy, very futuristic. Everything's very white, and it's a spectacle. That's what it is. It's a spectacle. Critics are blasting this for the cost overruns, and other people are saying that it in no way resembles a classic train station, that it's an abomination. I mean, I think the big thing is that this cost $4 billion. And when you hear that, as someone who lived in New York City, and as someone who is aware of infrastructure projects and public transportation, what do you think about this?
Well, I don't really have a problem with infrastructure spending. This money goes to contractors who then pay employees, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's sort of the way it's supposed to go. Obviously, when you know about the huge corruption and cronyism that exists in big city construction, then you might have a sort of different view. But I have no problem with that. The $4 billion specifically, I mean, I would walk by this very often. Our office in Lower Manhattan was very, very close to this. This is like the World Trade Center transportation hub. So it's going to be I believe it's a PATH train stop, which is the subway that goes to New Jersey. It'll be a regular subway stop. I think there will be buses outside. I mean, it's a fantastic facility. I love the design. I could not care less that it doesn't look like a traditional train station, because when I think of sort of the great European and Asian train stations, they're starting to look more sort of futuristic like this. So I have no problem whatsoever with the design. As far as the allocation of funding for public transit, buses are a really big problem. I mean, in most cities, buses don't work that great, right? And in New York City, it would be great to improve the functioning of the buses. Part of that is sort of limited by the fact that you're dealing with surface traffic. So investing more in buses other than just Wi-Fi on buses, which is something that's being talked about, I think would be good. And also the Second Avenue subway. People, if you don't live in New York, none of this may make sense, but if you think of Manhattan specifically, right, not thinking of the Bronx, and Staten Island has no subway, Brooklyn and Queens right now, but of Manhattan, you have subway lines that basically go north-south, right? So on the 8th Avenue line is the A and C line, the blue lines. And then on 6th Avenue, you have the F and some of the other orange lines. And then on the east side of Manhattan, you basically just have the green lines, the 4, 5, 6 lines. So all of Eastern Manhattan deals with just one set of lines. And for something like 80 years, there's been discussion and early work on the 2nd Avenue subway line, which would be a second subway line on the east side. My sense is, especially dealing with the green line all the time, living in New York City, that there should be a high sense of urgency for doing as much as possible to get that 2nd Avenue subway going, although it's just going to take a while. Now, is spending $4 billion on this thing slowing down the 2nd Avenue subway? I have no idea. Probably not. I don't know. But that seems to me like it should be one of the highest priorities. But this is going to be a fantastic transportation hub.
You think New York has this money to throw around?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, if that's the case, fine. Who cares, right?
Throw around. I mean, what do we even mean by that?
I mean, you probably could have built a lovely train station for $1 billion.
Maybe so.
Am I right?
Probably. You could have built a train station for $1 billion.
I think it would have been nice. Wouldn't it have been?
It may have been. It may have been.
All right. Moving on. A pair of Vietnamese twins have different fathers, fraternal twins, and this is a very rare case. The occurrence is known as heteropaternal superfecundation, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong.
I'm sure as well.
That's how. Anyway, it could be pronounced that way. It's I'm trying to think of other ways to pronounce that word, but I'm not coming up with any.
Good.
It's very rare. Very few cases are publicly known, and of course, you can only go back as far as DNA testing would allow, right? And so, I guess there are only 10 known cases of this. Since
My
we're-
bet is there are way more than 10 cases of this. I think known
Right.
is the sort of
No.
key word, right?
known, of course,
Yeah.
of course. And I'm sure there have been far more than 10, and it's probably, yeah, it happens. Very rare, though. Very rare. And it's just, yeah, it's just fascinating. I guess this can happen when, of course, it's fertilization of multiple eggs. This is what's happening. And so, I mean, that's really the only way it can happen if you think about it.
Right.
Logically.
So identical twins, you have separation of the same fertilization event.
Mm-hmm.
Fraternal twins, you have fertilization of two eggs. So they're basically, oftentimes fraternal twins look no more similar than just siblings that were born years apart. So really, if you are a woman who gives birth to fraternal twins and could have, based on your sexual activity roughly 9 months prior, have been impregnated by two different men, this is a possibility.
It is, yeah. And so, of course, a woman can produce multiple eggs in one ovulation period. It can also happen when there are the time between ovulation is much shorter, and that can happen.
Right.
And the last case was in 2015 involving twin girls in New Jersey, and that was the third known case in the U.S. Turkish media reported a similar case in 2010. Very rare, and just wild stuff. And
If you accidentally had a kid and that kid happened to be the fraternal twin to another man's kid, would you probably love the kid?
probably.
Very good.
Can't say it with certitude,
No.
but I think I probably would.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you love the woman would be a totally different question, right?
Well, that would be, yes, I even less of a question, or more of a question there.
Right.
I think is fair to say. Just because you have intercourse with someone does not mean you love them.
No.
Right? And then that kid would probably be accidental if that were the case. Okay. I talked about the Google AI beating one of the world's top Go players not too long ago. I have some news on this. This AI is now up 2-0 against the world's best Go player,
Right.
this Korean guy. And it is, I think we kind of knew what would happen here. This is an AI that teaches itself to become better. And so it's kind of scary, but it's a total of 5 games, of course, and the prize is about a prize is $1 million. I'm not sure why Google needs $1 million. Hopefully, they just give it to some good cause or something. But of course, the AI is going to win, and I guess the first game was kind of close. But of course, this AI teaches itself and it keeps getting better. And so, not surprising, right?
Learning machines. Yeah. I mean, we've been expecting this. This has been predicted by futurists for a very long time. Whether, the difference when you talk about learning machines, and we'll actually have a conversation about this. I don't remember with which upcoming guest, but I think someone's coming up that we're going to talk about this with. When you talk about learning machines that can learn by doing, we are getting more and more of a grasp of narrow learning machines, right? Your machine sort of understands the rules of Go, and by carrying out repeated instances of the game of Go, they can refine and improve their win percentage and strategy for Go, right? That's one type of machine learning. A totally separate thing would be you design a general AI and define, I mean, it's kind of a weird term, a general AI, and it has no specific data inside of it for example, how to play chess, nor how to program in C++. And it can learn those things in a sort of broad machine learning perspective. That we're still not on the horizon of. But the narrow machine learning is what this is.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to start.
Absolutely.
So there it is. Kind of scary stuff, interesting stuff. It happened with chess. Of course, it's going to happen with Go. And just about any other game you can program into this thing.
Right.
It's congratulations to Google. Okay. This is a really interesting story. Excuse me as I clear my throat in preparation for this.
By all means.
David, you remember one of the Wachowski brothers, the directors of The Matrix, came out as transgender
Right.
several years ago.
Transition to being female.
Transitioned to being female. And now the other sibling has done the exact same thing.
Right.
This is really interesting to me
For a couple of reasons.
for a couple of reasons.
Or rather, you could interpret it as interesting based on very different understandings of what this means.
Yes. I think this means that this isn't necessarily true, but I think they should be researched, because this could mean that this had something to do with being twins. They're twins, right? Are they
twins? I'm not sure about that.
Let me look into this.
I
Maybe
don't
they're
think they
not
are.
twins. Maybe they are just brothers. But anyway, something to do with genetics, right? That's what I'm getting at.
Well, you can say, look, if you have siblings, both of whom were born into the wrong bodies that they don't actually identify with in terms of sex, this is sort of evidence for the biological basis for transgenderism. But you could also look at this and say, hey, when you have two siblings, you have to look at how they were raised. Clearly, this was environmental or something about how they were parented or whatever. This is going to be used by those on all
Both sides.
sides of the transgender discussion to try to prop up their own ideas.
That's true. But to me, it's worth investigating, because I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
That there could be a look back to the birth. There could be something there. There could be some connection that can help explain this, and certainly worth exploring. Now, I suppose that what happens if we find out that this is somehow a genetic thing? What happens if we find out, if in any way we can prove that it's an environmental thing, and that it's a nurture instead of nature thing? To me, that doesn't make sense. But
Now, remember that scientists have already ascertained that if you look at individuals born male who identify as female, you can actually find differences in them versus someone who was born male and feels like they correctly
Yeah.
identify as male. So we know that exists already.
yeah, I mean, so the science leans in that direction.
Yes.
And perhaps it wouldn't be that surprising if we discover more of that in this case.
Right.
And now you have the Wachowski brothers, or now the Wachowski sisters, and they have not made a good movie since the first Matrix. I predict that will continue, and
It'll have nothing at all to do with their transition.
no, I don't think it will. I think, unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I mean, what happened? The Matrix was so great.
Yeah.
I think it did so well that they decided, or maybe they didn't decide this, maybe production companies said, we need to keep this going. Okay, they weren't good movies. And then they still didn't make any good movies.
I don't even think I saw. I mean, I vaguely remember seeing The Matrix 2, and I don't remember having any positive thoughts about it. I have no clue what the plot was. I mean, I really don't remember.
I don't think anyone does.
And was there a Matrix 3?
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't see that one.
Yeah. Well, don't bother.
Okay.
I've seen the first Matrix, I don't know how many times.
It's the best.
It's great.
The first Matrix is one of those movies, like, for me, and this is weird, it's just random movies. The Airplane movies, the Naked Gun movies, the Austin Powers movies, Men in Black 1, but not Men in Black 2. This random movie with Nick Nolte and Shaquille O'Neal called Blue Chips, and a few other movies
Mrs.
where
Doubtfire?
if Mrs. Doubtfire, if I catch it anywhere, no matter how many times I've seen it, I'll say, let me just see where we are, and I can watch the entire thing again, no matter where I drop in the middle, wherever, I can just watch it.
I know the feeling. Yes, that is the same with me with many movies. I think I'd have to add Jaws to that list.
Okay.
And for some reason, when Jaws comes on, I have to keep watching it. And Shawshank Redemption.
Right. Shawshank Redemption is one.
We can't forget that one.
Absolutely.
All right. That's it. Good
And
bonus.
Saved by the Bell episode. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Not me. You don't have me on that one.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.